Welcome to a new episode from English Plus Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about Mexico. We will talk about some facts about Mexico. We will talk about Mexico's people, Mexico City, life in Mexico, the Mexican landscape, and we have something special to talk about, and that is chocolate for dinner. And then we will talk about ancient Mexico and the end of the Aztec Empire. So we have a lot to cover, and of course, don't forget that we will talk about some key vocabulary from the words we use to talk about Mexico. So without further ado, let's start talking about Mexico. Mexico is the southern neighbor of the United States. Its full name in Spanish is Estados Unidos Mexicanos, which means the United Mexican States. Spanish is the language of Mexico because Spain ruled Mexico for 300 years. Now let's talk about some facts about Mexico. As we said, the official name is United Mexican States. The capital is Mexico City. The official language is Spanish. The population is about 127 million people, and that ranks the 10th among countries in population. The major cities are Mexico City, Guadalajara, and Ecatepec de Morelos. The area of Mexico is 758,000 square miles or 1,960,000 square kilometers, and that ranks the 14th among countries in area. The highest point in Mexico is Pico de Orizaba, and that stands 18,406 feet above sea level or 5,610 meters above sea level. The currency of Mexico is the Mexican peso. And now let's talk about Mexico's people. Most of Mexico's people have both Spanish and Native American ancestry. Although most Mexicans speak Spanish, some still speak the Native American languages of their ancestors. Spanish conquistadors, who are explorers and conquerors, came to Mexico in the 1500s. The conquistadors destroyed an empire built by Aztec Indians in Mexico. Spain ruled Mexico until 1821, when Mexico won its independence. Under Spanish rule, Mexicans became Roman Catholics. They created a version of the Catholic religion that's their own. For example, Mexicans worship the Virgin Mary as Our Lady of Guadalupe. A 3-day festival honoring Our Lady of Guadalupe starts on December the 12th each year. During the festival, people dance in the streets wearing Aztec headdresses and costumes. And now what about Mexico City? Mexico City is the capital and largest city in Mexico. More than 20 million people call the city home. That's nearly 1/5 of the entire country's population. Many Mexicans call their capital simply Mexico because it dominates the country so completely. Mexico City is one of the fastest growing cities in the world. In 2000, it was the second largest city in the world. Only Tokyo, the capital of Japan, had more people. Mexico City is built on the site of the capital of the Aztec Empire. Many stones from the Aztec capital were used in its first buildings. Today, it's a modern city with many tall buildings and wide, tree-lined streets. And now how about life in Mexico? A large public square or plaza lies in the center of most towns and cities in Mexico. Mexicans like to relax in the plaza on their time off. There's usually a church on the plaza and a marketplace nearby. A large number of Mexicans are poor. Some families live without electricity or running water in their homes. Some communities have no sewers. Some children leave school early to earn money and help support their families. Many Mexicans have moved to Mexico City or other cities in Mexico to find jobs. The cities also offer more schools and better health care than rural areas. But the cities have become extremely crowded. And now what about the Mexican landscape? Mexico offers dramatic scenery. North-central Mexico looks like the set for a cowboy movie. The bone-dry desert is filled with sagebrush and crossed by deep canyons. Southern Mexico has lush tropical forests. Central Mexico is a high plateau with snow-capped mountains on either side. Active volcanoes, such as Popocatépetl, sometimes belch smoke into the sky. Visitors marvel at Mexico's white, sandy beaches and clear turquoise water. Acapulco, Mazatlan, and Puerto Vallarta are famous vacation spots on Mexico's western coast. Well-known resorts also flourish on the Yucatan Peninsula in southeastern Mexico. Mexico is one of the world's top tourist spots. And now for the special thing, and that is chocolate for dinner. Would you like to have chocolate sauce for dinner? How about chocolate sauce on turkey? A popular sauce in Mexico contains chocolate, cinnamon, chili peppers, and other ingredients. It's called mole. Mexicans consider pavo en mole, turkey with mole sauce, their national dish. And now let's talk about ancient Mexico. Many tourists also come to Mexico to see the remains of ancient civilizations. Native Americans, including the Olmec, Zapotec, Maya, Toltec, and Aztec, developed civilizations in Mexico long before Europeans arrived. They built great cities with huge stone pyramids and other religious structures. The Maya had an advanced culture. They were skillful in mathematics. They knew a great deal about the stars. They created a complex and accurate calendar. They wrote books in a system of writing that people can no longer read. And now finally, let's talk about the end of the Aztec Empire. The Aztecs ruled the last great Native American empire. They built a grand city called Tenochtitlan. The Aztecs followed a religion based on human sacrifice. They had a belief that a pale god would come from the east and destroy them. In 1520, someone did come from the east, but he was not a god. He was Spanish explorer Hernán Cortés. Cortés and his small army destroyed the Aztec Empire and started a Spanish empire in Mexico. So that was our story about Mexico. I hope you learned a thing or two about Mexico, this incredible country. I haven't had the chance to visit, but I imagine that would be one of the places that I would love to visit sometime in the future. And now, before we move on and talk about the keywords we can find in this text about Mexico, let me remind you that you can find a link in the description of the episode that will take you to our website, EnglishPlusPodcast.com. There you will find everything you need to practice the things you're learning here. You can practice the keywords we're going to talk about. You can practice your listening in the PDF downloadable worksheet that we include on our website as well. You can download it for free, of course, and you can check your answers with the answer key we provide with it as well. And, of course, if you would like to just read the text itself, you will find the text in the show notes, also in the same custom post we created specially for this episode. Take the link you can find in the description and go to our website, EnglishPlusPodcast.com, and take your English with it to the next level. And one more thing, if you like the content we're creating and you would like to support us to create more of that content, you can become our patrons on Patreon. You can find a link in the description that will take you to our Patreon page. Become a patron of English Plus Podcast and help us grow and reach more people and create more of the content you like. And now, without further ado, let's talk about the keywords we can find in this text. Let's start with the very first word, and that is ancestry. We said most of Mexico's people have both Spanish and Native American ancestry. Now, what do we mean by ancestry? Your ancestry is the fact that you are descended from certain people. That is your ancestry. Now for the next word, conquistador. Now Spanish conquistadors. Now conquistador is a very specific word. The conquistadors were the 16th century Spanish conquerors of Central and South America. It is a Spanish word, of course, and we use it for only this period of time. These are the conquistadors, explorers and conquerors. And now for the next word, worship. We said Mexicans worship the Virgin Mary of Our Lady of Guadalupe. What is the meaning of worship? If you worship a god, you show your respect to the god, for example, by saying prayers. And if you worship someone or something, you love them or admire them very much. So that was worship. And then we have the word dominate. We said many Mexicans call their capital simply Mexico because it dominates the country so completely. What is the meaning of dominate? To dominate a situation means to be the most powerful or important person or thing in it. But if we use that for a building, a mountain, or other object, we say a building or mountain or other object dominates an area, it is so large or impressive that you cannot avoid seeing it. And here, Mexico City, figuratively speaking, not just by its size, dominates the whole country. So that is the meaning of dominate. Then we move on to talk about plaza. We said a large public square or plaza lies at the center of most towns and cities in Mexico. Now, a plaza is an open square in a city, and that is especially in Spain or a Spanish-speaking country. And then we have the word rural. We said the cities also offer more schools and better health care than rural areas. What do we mean by rural? Rural places are far away from large towns or cities. And rural means having features which are typical of those areas that are far away from large towns or cities. And of course, it is related to the country or the countryside life. And then we talked about the cities have become extremely crowded. What do we mean by crowded? If a place is crowded, it is full of people. And that is exactly what's happened to the cities in Mexico. And then we talked about the scenery of Mexico. We said Mexico offers dramatic scenery. What is the meaning of the word scenery? The scenery in a country area is the land, water, or plants that you can see around you. And of course, when we use this word, we're talking about beautiful things you can see. So that is the dramatic scenery you can find in Mexico. Then we talked about lush tropical forests. That's what you can find in southern Mexico. What is the meaning of lush? Lush fields or gardens have a lot of very healthy grass or plants. And then we talked about the volcanoes that sometimes belch smoke into the sky. What is the meaning of belch? Now, of course, if someone belches, they make a sudden noise in their throat because air has risen up from their stomach, like when you drink soda or something. But if a machine or chimney belches something such as smoke or fire, or if smoke or fire belches from it, large amounts of smoke or fire come from it. And that is the meaning of belch when we talk about volcanoes. Then we talked about marvel. We said visitors marvel at Mexico's white, sandy beaches and clear turquoise waters. What is the meaning of marvel? If you marvel at something, you express your great surprise, wonder, and admiration. And then we talked about the resorts there. We said well-known resorts also flourish on the Yucatan Peninsula. Now, what is the meaning of resort? A resort is a place where a lot of people spend their holidays. And in the same sentence, we used flourish. If something flourishes, it is successful, active, or common, and developing quickly and strongly. That is the meaning of flourish. And then we talked about the Mayan culture, and we said that they created a complex and accurate calendar. What is the meaning of accurate? Accurate information, measurements, and statistics are correct to a very detailed level, and that is how their calendar is. And then for our final word for today, that is sacrifice. We said the Aztecs followed a religion based on human sacrifice. Now, to sacrifice an animal or person means to kill them in a special religious ceremony as an offering to a god. So these were all the words that I wanted to focus on in today's episode. I hope you learned a couple of words that you can add to your own speaking and writing. Now, before I leave you, let me remind you again that you can take your English to the next level. If you go to our website, EnglishPlusPodcast.com, you can find a link that will take you to the custom posts we created specifically for this episode. You will find everything you need to practice the things we've learned. You have interactive activities, a PDF downloadable worksheet, and the show notes. Simply everything you need to practice if you want to take your English to the next level. With that being said, I would like to thank you very much for listening to another episode from English Plus Podcast. This is your host, Danny. I will see you next time.